Well, what's up, students? Welcome to RISE Sunday Night Live. As we mentioned earlier at the beginning of our service, today we are joined by David Blough. So everybody give a round of applause virtually to David Blough. Yay!
All right.
David is an old student of mine from back in the day, and I love David. And just a little bit about him. He grew up in the Carrollton area. He went to Creekview High School, and he went on to play college football at Purdue University. I don't think he could get into Clemson. He wasn't quite smart enough, which is fine.
He's definitely smart enough, not talented enough.
Okay.
Smart enough.
But you played college football is the point, which I did
I
not.
get it.
So.
I just don't know that it's very hard to get into Clemson.
No, it's not. It's not at all. Good point. And now David finds himself in the NFL with the Detroit Lions, and he's a quarterback on their team. And so Amber is super excited because that's her homeland team, right?
My state, yeah. Go Lions. Okay,
go Lions. Amber, when was the last time that the Lions made the playoffs? Do you know this? Put you on the spot.
I don't know. I don't know.
She's a big fan, though. She's a big fan, I promise. Awesome. Well, hey, we're going to spend a few minutes here with David. And David, thanks again for joining us, man. We wish we could be with you in person, but, you know, COVID-19 and all that kind of stuff. We want to social distance and be appropriate there. And so we do appreciate you Zooming in with us. And so we're just going to kind of kick it off with some rapid fire questions. I know you, but this help Amber get to know you a little bit better, but also our audience at the same time. And so first question for you is how did you meet your wife?
Oh gosh. At Creekview High School in Carrollton, 2012, I joined the track team because my wife ran track. So she was a 400 hurdler, an incredible 400 hurdler. She still does it, runs professionally now, but I ran track and field because I wanted to be as close as I could to trying to pursue her, to chase after her, to be in her circle. And so, yeah, I'd say I punished myself by running to pursue my future wife. Does that work? Does that statement work?
That's good. Yeah, totally. What's your favorite thing about your wife? Or you can give a top 3 if you can't pick one.
Oh goodness. Yeah, she has just selflessly served and is the most loving and kind person that I've ever met. Anybody who comes in contact with her is just you can see how she loves someone, and it's just evident that she loves Jesus first and foremost, but and then in her smile and her just love for others, you can see how she just cares about the well-being of other people's and would sacrifice everything she has for others. And I just love seeing that about her and our marriage, and then with her family and friends and teammates that she still runs with now. And so that's been the most beautiful thing for sure.
That's awesome.
Yeah, way to go. Great answer.
Great.
We'll send it to her. We'll send it to her later. We got you. We got your back. David, what is your favorite fast food restaurants?
Favorite fast food restaurant is, if I had to go strictly fast food, I would say Cane's, because how do you beat their chicken fingers?
Right.
And then I think my favorite, I've been ordering a lot of carry out lately. So if I'm getting tacos, I'm going to Torchy's, man. I don't know how you beat the queso there. And that's been kind of a new favorite being back in Dallas.
Yes. Can't go wrong with Torchy's. That's
right.
Awesome.
Yeah. What's your favorite or like the coolest thing about being in the NFL that we probably wouldn't know about? What's something there?
Favorite thing about being in the NFL, I think for me, just in my first year, I've been on 2 teams now, but these different players you get to meet, you kind of grew up. You grew up as a fan, and I grew up in the Dallas area, so I was a big Cowboys fan. And, you know, being on the Lions this year, we got to play the Cowboys, and I'm sitting there thinking, you know, you're not a fan anymore, but it's still cool to see Jason Witten, who's catching passes, and it's like, man, that's my childhood.
Who's like 55 years old at this point.
Yeah,
right?
Yeah, for real.
Good Lord, and that guy's old.
still, I'm sitting here, I'm looking at these guys, and I was in Cleveland for a little bit, and you get to throw passes to Odell Beckham and Jarvis, and Baker is in there, and it's fun to be with the guys, and they're just normal people who treated me with respect and love and showed me the right way things are supposed to be done, and that's really what I enjoyed about being kind of in those rooms with those guys in the close quarters, and that's what I love about football, really, is the camaraderie behind it.
Yeah, I love it.
Yeah, super cool. How did you get into football? Was it something that you always loved and wanted to do?
For me, I played quarterback. I didn't really like getting hit. I don't like getting hit by the people, and neither did my mom. She was originally the first one who pushed me into playing football, and it started with me going to a camp in middle school saying I wanted to play wide receiver, and my mom came up to the coach and said, "No, he's a quarterback. Nope, he's the leader of the team. I don't know if he can throw a football, but he's a leader. He's the quarterback." And so I kind of at that point started training to see if I could be a good quarterback, and had some great coaches along the way. And yeah, I think now I just reflect and say, man, my mom was right.
Mom is always right.
Yeah. So all you guys out there, listen to your mothers.
That's good. I love it. Well, hey, David, we would love to kind of maybe transition from that lightning quick round of questions. And man, we just want to dive into some more spiritual kind of components of your life. And let's start with just your testimony. And if you could share with us, what did that look like for you growing up? How did you come to know the Lord?
Yeah. So for me, I grew up in Carrollton, Texas, in a Christian home. And whenever I walked outside of my bedroom, I would see my mom sitting there at the coffee table reading her Bible. And when I would get in the car to go to school, my dad would say, "This is the day the Lord has made. Let us rejoice and be glad in it." And I sit there and I reflect on this time, and I saw faith at work in my home, in my parents. And that was my first example of it. It wasn't until I went to Pine Cove. I'm sure there's a lot of kids listening right now who've been out to Pine Cove. Crazy cult. No, I'm kidding. I'm joking. Completely joking.
Kind of. Yeah.
And I accepted Jesus outside of my cabin, going into the 5th grade with my camp counselors. Camp name was Quail Man. His real name was Jay Green. And I remember understanding the gospel, and that I wasn't perfect, that I was a sinner, and that because of God's love for us, he sent his son to die on the cross. And Jesus, who lived this perfect life, conquered the grave and rose again 3 days later. And I understood that, and I felt that I knew that. But even as a 5th grader, it wasn't really my own faith until some trials came about when I was kind of in my high school years. When I got into high school and some things happened in my life, that wasn't really my own faith. But that was my story. That was like how I came to know the Lord, where I saw it first, and kind of the influence my incredible parents had on me.
Yeah. That's awesome. I think we're going to ask you about those trials in just a minute, but before we do that, we would love to hear, just like as you've been a Christian, as a high school football player, college football player, and now in the NFL, what are some difficulties that you've experienced being a Christian in those spaces, and how do you glorify God in them?
Yeah, I think for some reason, football players at all levels kind of have this persona, this reputation that is casted on them of you have this access to a lot of things. And I think I saw that in high school, and I definitely saw it in college, where it's very easy to long for things of this world and try to fill yourself with the things that this world has to offer. And so I see that a lot with football players, because you have this platform, people look up to you a lot. And the best thing about it was being somebody who stood for Jesus in a locker room that isn't very common, I would say. you can have an incredible impact on a team and really a campus, maybe even a whole nation, just because of the influence that you get to have being a college football player. You get to play on Saturdays in front of thousands and hundreds of thousands and millions of people. And the beautiful thing is the relationships you get to make in the locker room as somebody who follows Jesus, and you get to point your teammates who are longing for this fulfillment of something of the world to something that's eternal, which is our God. And I think that was, once I realized that was one of the most powerful things about me in my 5 years at Purdue, was I could have this influence on my teammates who are going to go all over the world and impact so many different people. And that's what I wanted to do. I wanted to pursue them for Jesus. And so, they could let their light shine too.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
That's great, David. Hey, you mentioned a little bit about trials a few minutes ago, and we would love just to jump into that because, man, we just currently find ourselves, and we know this about life, there's always going to be like hard seasons or trials that come our way. And so, but we find ourselves in this, COVID-19 quarantine kind of season of life. And so just thinking about that, and then thinking about just your life and growing up in like football and faith, and how there's all kind of intertwined together. Man, I would just love to hear you speak to, like, how did your faith play a role in the trials that you kind of faced in your life?
Yeah. So, I said I grew up in this Christian home, and everything was great growing up. And kind of the first experience of, maybe you can say, pain that or hard time that I went through was kind of my freshman year. My parents got a divorce, and that was all brand new to me. But reflecting on it now, I can see that God had his hand in it. My small group at Bentry Bible Fellowship, he hand placed my best friends in my group. He hand placed small group leaders who were there to disciple me and pulled me along the right path, because at vulnerable times in our life, you can go one of two ways. And luckily, I had people there to pull me along in a way that was going to follow Jesus. And I can look back, and now in my first year of marriage, I can see all the beautiful things that were there, and the things that maybe I would want to change. And it's great now that I can reflect back and see that God had his hand in that. And that's, an example in a personal life. But I had my fair share when it came to football. Ups and downs. I led the country in interceptions one year. I dislocated my ankle bad and broke it on the field, and was carted off in an ambulance. Like, I got to experience a lot of the highs and a lot of the lows that you get to have as a football player. And if you put your identity in David Blough, the football player, that will humble you real quick. That will fade so quickly. And I realized through different people that I was around, different trips, like I got to go to South Africa to an orphanage quite a few times, like different things I got to do because of my faith, that put this perspective that I'm David Blough, the Christian, and that comes first in the locker room. That comes first with my team. It comes first with my family. And so, that was something I dealt with. I dealt with all those ups and downs of football. And I think a great example I got to just be a small part of was a young man named Tyler Trent at Purdue last year, or 2 years ago, 2018, battled osteosarcoma, which is the most painful bone cancer you can have for his third time. And when he was diagnosed with it for his third time, it said, he was reading his devotional. It said in 1 Thessalonians 5:16-18, rejoice always, pray continually, and give thanks in all circumstances, for this is the will of Christ Jesus, your Lord, or in your life. And I sit there and I think about my buddy Tyler, who was literally going through one of the most painful things in the entire world, and said, I'm not going to waste my cancer. I'm going to use this cancer to reach as many people as I can. And we just played a small part of it. And his dream was for us to beat Ohio State. I know as a Clemson fan, you were hoping we beat Ohio State.
Same.
Same, yeah.
We're all united. We're all united together.
And so we beat Ohio State, and Tyler's story is just blasted out all over the national media, and he chose not to waste his cancer. He chose that even in the midst of this adversity, this tough time, he knew, like it says in Romans, that all things work together for the good of those who love God, who are called according to his purpose. And he knew that, and said, as a 20-year-old man, like, yeah, I win either way. Whether I die tomorrow or I'm here in fellowship on earth, I win either way, because God's going to be glorified in my life. And I just saw that through his trial, and thought it was the most incredible thing I've ever been through. That's for sure.
Yeah, that is incredible. Thanks for sharing some of the hard parts of your life with us. I was encouraged by what you said. And I would just love, kind of just last question, what would be one thing that you would encourage our high school students with as they're walking through this difficult season of COVID-19 to speak to the Lord? And what would you say to them?
Yeah, I think there's a lot of uncertainty right now, right? Like, who knows what tomorrow is going to hold? Who knows what the summer is going to hold, the fall for, whether you're a graduating senior and figuring out what it's going to be going off into college, or if you're a freshman and you've got aspirations of your sophomore and junior and senior year. And right now it's just uncertainty, I think, is the word that I would use to describe it. And I think the most incredible thing about that is that we serve a certain God, is that we have a certain God, and there is no uncertainty. And he was the same yesterday as he will be today and will be tomorrow. And I sit there and I'm reminded of the verses in Hebrews 13, where it says, he will never leave us nor forsake us, therefore we can boldly say he is our helper. I sit there and I think that our God knows what we're going through, and he won't leave us. He won't lead us astray, and that right now he's who we can confide in. So, I hope all you guys and guys and gals, like, feel his presence in this time, even though it's uncertain and who knows what's going on. Just embrace with God right now. And I think what an opportunity we have, maybe some more time on our hands to do it. That's for sure.
Yeah.
That's good. Well, David, thank you so much again, man, for giving your time up and for hanging out with us for a few minutes. We loved hearing your story, and just the challenges that you even gave to us were really good for this season of life. And so thank you again, and we'll talk to you soon.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. Hope to see you soon.
Yeah.
All righty.